If the world has ever felt too thin for the weight of your inner life, this is for you. Have you ever wondered why you see patterns others miss? Why conversations that satisfy everyone else leave you starving? Why you'd rather face uncomfortable truths than comfortable lies? You weren't broken, you were built differently. Carl Jung spent decades studying individuals who operated with differentiated psychological functions and unusual self-awareness, a level of psychological depth that most people never develop. These aren't just personality quirks, they're evidence of rare psychological architecture. As one famous paraphrase puts it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what if who you are doesn't fit the mold society carved out for normal? Today we're examining 7 unmistakable signs of what Jung identified as psychologically rare individuals. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, everything you've been told about being too much will finally make sense. Because here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. You're not too much for the world. The world has been too little for you. Frame the map. Let me define what we're actually talking about. Individuation, Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming psychologically whole. Most people never complete this journey. The persona, the mask we build to adapt to society's expectations. Necessary but dangerous when it becomes our identity. Shadow integration, the courage to own the parts of yourself you've been taught to reject. Without this, your gifts become your prison. Psychological complexes, emotion-charged patterns that can seize us unless we make them conscious. The transcendent function, your inner ability to hold opposing truths until a third way emerges. Jung understood something most people refuse to face. Rare doesn't mean superior, it means responsible. You have a duty to make the unconscious conscious without inflating your ego. This isn't about collecting labels. It's about understanding why you've always felt like you were speaking a different language than everyone else. Sign 1, you feel in symphonies, not notes. Emotions don't visit you, they inhabit you. When something moves you, it doesn't just register as happy or sad. It arrives as layered waves of meaning that most people never access. You feel the story beneath the story, the grief hidden in laughter, the fear wrapped in anger. Jung called these feeling-toned complexes, emotional patterns that shape how we perceive reality. For you, they're not problems to be managed. They're information systems operating at frequencies others can't detect. You walk into rooms and sense the undercurrents before anyone speaks. You feel the weight of unspoken tensions. You carry the emotional climate of every interaction, because your psyche is wired for depth, not surface-level pleasantries. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung wrote. But you don't just understand yourself through irritation. You understand the world through feeling. This is your gift. But here's the shadow risk: emotional flooding. You can become so absorbed in the feeling world that you lose your center. You start drowning in depths that should nourish you. Jung's integration practice. Name the feeling. Notice where you feel it in your body. Ask what it's trying to show you. Then respond from consciousness. Don't just react from the complex. The question that reveals everything: do you use your depth to clarify reality or to drown in it? Sign 2, relentless inner questioning. You interrogate appearances, not to win arguments, but to reach truth that heals contradiction. Most people accept what they're told. You can't help but ask, what's really happening here? Why do we accept systems that don't serve us? Why do people stay trapped in patterns that diminish them? Your mind is constantly seeking what Jung called the transcendent function, the psychological ability to hold opposing viewpoints until a third, deeper understanding emerges. While others accept the status quo, you're already seeing what could be different, what could be more authentic, what could honor the full complexity of human experience. Jung often gets credit for saying, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." The sentiment captures your nature perfectly. You're awake in a world that prefers to dream. But here's the shadow. Your questions can isolate you. When you deconstruct comfortable illusions, you threaten the psychological defenses that keep people feeling safe in their limitations. You've probably been called cynical when you're actually being courageously honest. The shadow risk is becoming trapped in perpetual critique, deconstructing everything but rebuilding nothing. Jung's integration practice. Pair every question with constructive vision. If not this, then what? Don't just tear down. Imagine what could be built instead. Your self-check question. Do my questions end in rubble or in a path forward? Sign 3. Solitude that strengthens. You build your center from the inside out. Solitude isn't punishment, it's your forge. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You've learned to do exactly this, usually because life gave you no other choice." You discovered early that depending on others for your sense of worth is psychological quicksand. So you learned to stand alone, to validate your own experience, to trust your inner knowing even when everyone else disagreed. This isn't defensive isolation. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, especially the ones you've been taught to reject. You'd rather be alone than be false. You've tasted authentic solitude and discovered it's not lonely. It's sanctuary. Most people never complete individuation because it requires facing your shadow, all the rejected aspects of your personality. You've done this work, often without realizing what you were accomplishing. But here's the shadow risk. Your independence can become armor. You might use self-reliance to avoid the vulnerability required for genuine intimacy. Jung's integration practice. Create rhythms of solitude and connection. Maintain at least one relationship where truth is allowed to touch you, where you don't have to be completely self-sufficient. The revealing question, is your independence alive and flowing, or rigid and armored? Sign 4. Pattern sight and quiet intuition. You see trajectories, not just snapshots. You know where things are heading before others see the signs. Jung wrote, "Intuition is perception via the unconscious that brings forth ideas, images, possibilities." For you, this isn't mystical. It's how your mind naturally processes information. You notice micro patterns that others miss. The way someone's energy shifts before they speak. The underlying trajectory of relationship before the people in them recognize it. The potential outcomes of decisions while others are still debating the options. This isn't fortune telling. It's pattern recognition operating at an unconscious level, bringing insights into conscious awareness through hunches, images, and sudden knowing. When someone says they're fine, but everything about them screams distress, you can't unsee it. When there's tension brewing that everyone else ignores, you feel it building like a storm front. But here's where it gets dangerous. You can mistake your anxiety for foresight, or project your unconscious fears onto future possibilities, or treat your intuitions as law rather than information to be tested. Jung emphasized that intuition must be balanced by reality testing. Your hunches are valuable, but they need verification. The shadow risk is spiritual bypassing, using intuitive insights to avoid dealing with present moment realities. Jung's integration practice. Triangulate every intuition. Connect it to one observable fact and one embodied feeling. Where do you actually feel this in your body? Your diagnostic question: do you test your intuitions against reality or treat them as absolute truth? Sign 5, meaning before status. Your psyche won't let you trade authenticity for applause. Purpose isn't luxury, it's oxygen. You've probably tried living for external validation, following scripts, playing expected roles, but Jung would have recognized the symptoms immediately. That gnawing emptiness, that sense of betraying something essential, that quiet desperation beneath any external success. When you live against your psychological type, Jung discovered, you don't just feel uncomfortable, you develop neurotic symptoms. Your psyche literally rebels against inauthenticity. Success without alignment tastes hollow. You can't get excited about achievements that lack substance. You can't build relationships based on convenience rather than connection. Your psychological makeup won't allow it. Jung believed this is evidence of what he called teleological drive, life moving toward wholeness and meaning rather than just survival and pleasure. As one famous paraphrase puts it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But for you, this isn't inspirational advice. It's psychological necessity. The shadow risk is moral grandiosity. Believing your need for meaning makes you superior to those who haven't awakened to the same necessity, or developing contempt for ordinary pleasures and simple satisfactions. Another shadow, the messianic complex, believing it's your job to wake everyone up to the importance of authentic living. Jung's integration practice. Keep meaning concrete. Measure it in service, craft, courage. What did you create today? How did you help? Where did you choose truth over comfort? Your reality check. Is your meaning measurable in actual care, craft, or courage today? Or is it just a beautiful idea? Sign 6. Shedding skins again and again. You outgrow versions of yourself and circles that demand your old masks. Chapters end before others are ready. You walk anyway. Jung understood that psychological transformation moves through what he called enantiodromia, the tendency of things to change into their opposites. Growth requires letting old identities die so new ones can be born. The greatest burden on a child is the unlived life of the parents, Jung wrote. You refuse to carry that burden. You shed conditioning that wasn't yours. You outgrew limitations that felt natural to everyone around you. The friends who knew you when you were shrinking remember that version. Sometimes they want it back because it felt safer, more predictable. But psychological evolution is irreversible. Once you've tasted authentic living, you can't return to unconscious conformity. This creates a specific type of grief, the cost of consciousness. Every time you evolve, you leave something behind. Sometimes that something includes people who can't or won't make the journey with you. But here's the shadow risk: addiction to transformation, using change as an escape from the patient work of integration, burning bridges because dramatic endings feel more alive than gradual growth. Some people become addicted to the high of shedding skins, never learning to inhabit any identity long enough to develop mastery or depth. Jung's integration practice: ritualize endings with honor. Acknowledge what was valuable in what you're leaving behind. Express gratitude for the lessons. Leave at least one door unslammed. Your discernment question: am I evolving towards something or just escaping from everything? Sign 7. Transformational presence. People become more honest around you. Your attention creates what Jung called a temenos, a safe enclosure where truth can emerge. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, Jung wrote. You embody this principle. When someone speaks to you, they feel witnessed at a level that's uncommon. You don't just listen to words, you perceive the emotional state beneath them. You create space for complexity, contradiction, and unfinished truth. You don't offer quick fixes or immediate advice. You offer presence, the therapeutic gift of being truly seen and accepted in all your messy humanity. Jung understood that this quality of attention is actually a form of healing. In your presence, people remember what it feels like to be completely human. Rooms regulate when you arrive, conversations deepen. People tell you things they haven't told anyone else, sometimes things they didn't know they were thinking until they heard themselves say them. This is your gift, but it's also your burden. The shadow risk is helper syndrome, unconscious self-sacrifice that ultimately serves no one. You become so skilled at holding space for others that you forget to ask for space yourself. You carry pain that isn't yours. You work unpaid night shifts for everyone else's emotional healing. Another shadow, the invisible martyr. You give so much that you disappear. You become a resource for others rather than a person with your own needs, desires, and limitations. Jung's integration practice. 3 boundaries that protect your gift. Consent. Do they actually want your attention? Capacity. Do you have the energy to give it cleanly? Reciprocity. Is there mutual exchange, or are you always the giver? If any of those 3 is missing, step back with love. Your essential question: am I witnessing from wholeness or working unpaid therapy shifts for the world? The 3 psychological traps. 3 common traps for deep personalities. Jung explicitly warned about inflation. Inflation. Mistaking contact with the unconscious for personal greatness. Believing your depth makes you superior rather than responsible. The cure is humility, remembering that your gifts are on loan from the collective unconscious. The messianic complex, trying to wake up or heal everyone around you. Becoming addicted to being needed, to being the one with answers. The cure is boundaries, understanding that not everyone wants to be saved, and that's not your responsibility anyway. The martyr trap, believing that depth requires suffering, that sensitivity means inevitable pain, that consciousness demands perpetual sacrifice. The cure is joy, remembering that wholeness includes pleasure, lightness, and simple human happiness. Jung wrote that enlightenment comes not by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your work isn't to transcend your humanity, but to integrate all of it, light and shadow together. Integration practices. 7 daily practices for conscious rarity. Name the complex when it arises. This emotional surge has a story. I'll listen, then choose my response. Test your intuitions. Image plus 1 observable fact plus 1 body sensation. Triangulate before you act. Daily shadow work. What did I judge in others today that might also live in me? Boundary maintenance. Before offering your transformational presence, check consent, capacity, reciprocity. Temenos ritual. 10 minutes of undivided attention daily, for yourself or another. No fixing, just witnessing. Honor endings. Before leaving any situation or relationship, write 3 lines: gratitude for what was, lesson learned, blessing for what's next. Meaning ledger. Each day record 1 aligned action, service, craft, or courage. Make meaning concrete. Self-assessment. 7 questions to recognize your psychological rarity. Do you feel in symphonies rather than single notes, experiencing layered emotional complexity others miss? Do your questions end in deeper understanding rather than just critique? Is your solitude strengthening rather than isolating? Do you test your intuitions rather than blindly following them? Can you measure your meaning in concrete acts of care, craft, or courage? Are you evolving towards something rather than just escaping everything? Do you maintain boundaries around your transformational presence? 3 or more strong yes responses suggest you're walking the individuation path. Rare not by status, but by psychological responsibility. Jung warned that when inner situations remain unconscious, they unfold outside as fate. Your work is to bring them to light, first in you, then in how you live. You're doing the work of making the unconscious conscious, not just for yourself, but as service to the evolution of human awareness. Rare means responsible. You have gifts that most people don't develop: emotional sophistication, penetrating questions, conscious independence, intuitive awareness, meaning-driven, evolutionary capacity, transformational presence. But with these gifts comes obligation to use them consciously, to avoid inflation, to maintain compassion even when others can't match your level of awareness. You're not just living your own life, you're expanding what it means to be human. Every time you choose authenticity over acceptance, you create more space for truth in the world. Every time you ask the questions others avoid, you pioneer new possibilities for honest conversation. Jung understood that people like you serve as bridges between what is and what could be. You're evolutionary scouts, mapping territories of consciousness that others will eventually inhabit. The loneliness you sometimes feel isn't evidence that something's wrong with you. It's evidence that you're walking paths few others have walked. You're solving problems most people don't recognize as problems yet. Your intensity isn't too much. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. Your refusal to settle isn't difficult. It's necessary for the continued evolution of human consciousness. The world needs your questions, your depth, your unwillingness to accept limitations as permanent, but give these gifts strategically. Protect your energy, choose your battles. Remember that you can't save everyone, but you can live in a way that shows others what's possible. Jung believed that individuation, becoming who you truly are, is the greatest gift you can give to the collective human experience. By accepting yourself completely, you give others permission to do the same. If sign 7 resonated most deeply, if you recognize yourself as someone who creates transformational presence, comment, consent, capacity, reciprocity. Let me know you're committed to protecting your gift while sharing it consciously. And if you're building a self that can hold both the storm and the stillness, stay, subscribe. There's more depth to explore. Remember, the world doesn't need you to be smaller, quieter, or more convenient. The world needs you to be exactly what Jung saw in psychologically rare individuals: conscious, courageous, and completely yourself.